We're back with Dr. Walter Block from Loyola University. We're going to get into some questions about the economy. We have callers holding. Just please hold for Dr. Block. And I'm just going to follow up with what we went out on the break, where I was wondering, Dr. Block, if you have any advice as to what people might do in terms of economics regarding the depression that we're living in.
One advice is to move to a freer country. The U.S., sometimes we think of ourselves as the freest country, but there are, according to calculations of which is the freest country, we're only about 6th or 7th.
Who's freer?
Countries that are freer are Hong Kong, New Zealand, Switzerland, Singapore, one or two others, I don't remember. But you can look it up. One of my books is on that. Economic Freedom in the World is called. So that's one possibility, move to a freer country.
Assuming you can't do that or don't want to.
Right. The language difficulty, although New Zealand, they speak funny English, but it is English.
Yes, the Kiwis.
And also Switzerland, they speak English there. The suggestions that you mentioned about burying silver in your backyard sound pretty good to me.
That's what I thought.
Buy gold, although Obama's buddy FDR declared gold illegal in the 30s, and I don't know whether Obama will do that or not, but that's a possibility.
Yes, well, that requires people to voluntarily give it back. I think I might want to nullify on that.
I did want to ask you your opinion on that, is because I think it was Greenspan in '66 said that the only way the federal government could protect itself against the people is to declare gold illegal. And obviously it's happened once before. Now you have Greenspan wrote a paper on that. Do you see that as maybe happening again?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to predict what side of the bed Obama will get out on. But, Greenspan in the 60s was very good. He was associated with Ayn Rand. He favored the gold standard. And then later on, he sort of went off into the other end of the spectrum.
All right. Let me ask you, regarding some things that we've seen happening around the world, particularly Western Europe. We've seen Greece go through some tough times, and we know that Portugal, Spain, Italy, and others it will manifest itself very soon, I do believe. For example, I guess in Greece, they are selling off or leasing off at least portions of some of their islands.
Yes.
I read that Wyoming, which owns the Grand Teton National Forest, is considering leasing off part of that. This is basically to pay off central bankers, correct?
Well, that's one way to look at it. I just have to put in a plug for Portugal. They did legalize drugs, so
well, good. There you
watch
go.
Watch out what you say about Portugal.
Well, but I mean financially, they're
No, you're quite right.
And what's to prevent that from happening to the U.S.? And how about we do what Iceland did, which is tell them, I don't think so.
Well, Murray Rothbard is always talking about reneging on government debt.
Right on.
People who lend government money are aiding and abetting an evil force and deserve very little, if anything.
Well, that leads to this, though, is and I can't cite where it is, but I know in the Constitution, part of the Constitution is that the debt of the federal government shall not be questioned. Isn't that an interesting little clause they put in? So how do we get around that one? Because I think we should default.
Yes, Tom Woods has got a new book out called Nullification, where he makes great play of the 10th Amendment, which says that those powers not specifically given to the government are reserved to the states. And the government has been hogging up all these attributes for these many years. So repudiation of federal debt might work out through nullification a la Tom Woods.
Well, which reminds me, we had him on as a guest earlier today, and he told us to tell you hello.
Oh, well, I'd say hello back, but he's already gone.
He's gone.
But I'll be seeing him soon at the Mises Institute. They're having a week-long seminar.
And are there seminars that people in New Orleans that are interested in your views on the economy can attend? Do you have anything upcoming?
Well, as you know, because you attended when Ron Paul came
I sure
here.
did, along with 1,000-something people, which the Times-Picayune didn't cover. There you go.
Well, I guess it was unimportant.
I guess 10 people in the front of City Hall, front page news, 1,200 kids enthusiastically screaming for Ron Paul, and sound money system doesn't make the news. So.
Right. Well, as you know, we do have a libertarian program here at Loyola New Orleans. If people would email me, I'll put them on a list to notify them of events that are coming up. My email address is wblock, like around the block, at Loyno, Loyno, Louis Oliver Yellow New Orleans.edu for education. So if anyone out there in Radio Land emails me and says, put me on the list to be notified of Libertarian events, I will certainly do just that.
Okay.
All right, now we do have a caller on the line with a question for our guest. Let's go to Mandeville. Michael, good morning.
Hey, guys, just calling from the kitchen of bitching this morning.
All right.
Hey,
I
Michael.
just wanted to ask you this question, Dr. Block. I noticed that there's some legislation just recently, I don't know if it's passed yet or not, with regards to reform for the financial systems, the banking systems. And I was made aware by someone else, and I haven't verified this, but apparently this new legislation, this sweeping legislation to regulate the financial industry, does not include or affect Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And then additionally, one other thing that was left out of this, I think that was being argued and considered, was a return to a system similar to the Glass-Steagall Act. And apparently, what I've heard recently is that Germany is actually toying with the idea, or actually considering a return, or actually some sort of system similar to the Glass-Steagall Act as well. Have you heard these things? Are you familiar with it? Can you confirm as to whether or not this is true with regards to federal Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
Well, yes, I think that you're quite right in your facts and also in your assessment. The Glass-Steagall Act established the FDIC and helped along with central banking. You see, what happens is the government has Regulation A, and it screws up. And instead of going back to the free enterprise system, they have Regulation B, and that screws up even worse. And now they go to Regulation C, D. I guess we're past Z. I don't know what the letter after Z is, but what they ought to do, instead of going down that regulation path, which leads to the Soviet system, is to go back, turn back the clock toward the free enterprise system. Go back to the gold standard, get rid of fractional reserve banking. In other words, incorporate what Ron Paul has been talking about in terms of financial security. Certainly, Freddie and Fannie ought to be scotched. So I think that they're moving in exactly the wrong direction, and they have to realize that it's their regulations that are creating the mess.
Well, I'd just like to send a shout-out to Senator Dodd and Barney Frank and thanking them for running this country, and I hope that everyone hears that and keeps that in mind that they're both Democrats. So anyway, and I agree that there is no left or right. I agree wholly with what you said earlier. But we've got to start to vote independent people who understand these sorts of things, because most people don't understand these types of principles with regards to economics and the way the systems work.
But they can if they go watch Dr. Block on YouTube. They could learn a lot.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Mike.
Hey, Dr. Block, I wanted to mention this too. You said one of the first things that we can do to protect ourselves is move to a freer country. But let me ask you this. I'm of the opinion that if you're in a country where there's a central bank, you're just really not economically free. And if you're not economically free, you're not free. Do all the world's countries operate under a central bank?
I'm really not sure. There are 275 countries, and I imagine some of the teeny tiny ones that are just islands are not. But I really, unfortunately, can't fully answer your question. The major countries all do have, yes, certainly.
You're kind of fading out there, Dr. Block. I don't know if something's going on with your phone, but
I'm sorry.
that's better.
What I'm saying is that the major countries all have central banks, but I'm not sure that I agree with that statement that if you have a central bank, you're not economically free, and if you're not economically free, you're not free. There are degrees. I mean, there are horrible central banks, and then there are central banks that aren't as horrible. There are degrees in all of these things. Now, I wasn't seriously suggesting that people leave the country. Look, I haven't left the country. I'm still here. But, I was asked the question of what could you do, and that should be put on the list.
Absolutely that, and there is that shovel in the silver in the backyard. So.
No,
Right.
you're definitely right. These are matters of degree. But the reason I say that is because if they can inflate the currency and steal you from what you're trying to save, I really just don't think you're economically free. But certainly not everybody is as bad as what we've got here.
Well, for example, the German central bank is usually better than, say, the Greek central bank or others.
Right.
So even though they both have central banks, if one has harder money, like, say, Switzerland, than the other, you're better off with one central bank than another. So it is a matter of degree, although I certainly agree with you that central banks are very bad things, and we should have free enterprise money, which is the gold standard.
We have a caller on line 2 for you, Mike in Covington. You have a question for Dr. Block?
Hey, good morning. It's a great show, and I really had a question for the doctor, and I wanted to find out what is the most effective way to detach yourself from an overregulated system to a free market system? Is it progressive steps, or is it like using the idea embodied in the 10th Amendment, where you would have your localized or regional regulation bodies or authorities that are going to kind of run things, and then through that separation of power, you don't have it coalescing into a national or a federal government. Is it really just returning to that? Is that our best hope in the short term, to try to get rid of the communist system or the socialist system that is really just crony capitalism, back more towards a free market? Is that the approach we should take, is to say let's take the control back on the state level?
Well, I think there are many, many ways to go. For example, there's the Free State Project, where libertarians are encouraged to move to, what is it, New Hampshire or Vermont?
Yeah, it's New Hampshire.
It's New Hampshire.
That's one way to go. Another way to go is to come to study economics at Loyola University with me and my colleagues, because we're the most free enterprise economics department of all. Another is to support groups like the Mises Institute that are working in this end. Another is, I'm not sure about the Libertarian Party with Bob Barr, but certainly Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Support Ron Paul. Support this radio program and other radio programs like this. There are many ways to achieve freedom.
Dr. Block, you've been a great guest, and I would really encourage everybody to learn as much as you can from Dr. Block, and that's a lot. I certainly have, and we'll have him back for sure, because he's back to New Orleans now.
And his website is pretty simple, walterblock.com, just like it sounds.
Yes, so encourage your friends to go check out Dr. Block and download this podcast and listen to it. And Dr. Block, anything you want to promote?
This radio program is magnificent. I certainly support it.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
Doc.
for having